So it's time to get some GCMS spec data on our acetanilide and bromoacetanilide. So I've extracted those beakers from the desiccator, and we have 48A, which is the acetanilide, we hope. And then we have our two different recrystallizations, 49B and 59A, which are both the bromoacetanilide. And you can see that the solid's different looking. Right? We've got kind of a flaky, cream-colored, almost plates, versus the much more powdery solid for the bromo compound. So we're going to weigh those so we can get accurate percent yields now that they're dry. And 48A has a mass of 9.637 grams. 49B has a mass of 8.226 grams. And 59A has a mass of 8.572 grams. And those are respectively 48A, the acetanilide, what's left that I didn't use, and 49B, the first recrystallization from the bromo compound, and 59A, the second recrystallization. And I've labeled up vials for each of those. So we can transfer that material. And for that purpose, we will use a micro spatula. And I've put it in there so it won't fall over. And I've also got some weighing paper to serve as a filter aid. So we'll just kind of make a little mini funnel out of that. Right, trying to hold an opening similar in size to the vial. That'll help us pour that solid in there without losing very much of it. Kind of poke down through. I can actually get that to stay in there without taping it. Maybe not. Looks like I'm going to have to tape that. Get that to stay in so that I can scrape out the rest of the solid. I think we already got a crude mass on this before I took out the material for the bromination, but it's worth knowing how much we had left as well. Solids being kind of a pain in the ass and sticking to the beaker. So we're just going to lose a little bit. Kind of unavoidable. I got most of it. Good enough. So we'll have that. Set that aside. And then 59B and 59A, which are theoretically the same material, so I can use the same filter paper funnel for both of those. This time I'll tape it immediately so that it's ready to go. Twist that. This makes it much easier than having to scoop a tiny little bit at a time, which is kind of frustrating. I'm just going to wipe that off with a sponge and then dry it. Don't really need to wash that each time. This one looks like it's more powdery and is going to be easier to transfer. There's a little bit left, but all I need is enough for NMR and mass spec, and I've got plenty. I'll set 49B aside here. And then this is theoretically the same material, our second crop. I'll break it up a little bit. Might be a little more, a little less pure, but we're not going to contaminate it much by using that same piece of waxy paper because there's not much residue left on it. A little bit that doesn't want to come out. A little bit that wants to stay stuck in there. Enough. Yeah, spilled a little bit, but still plenty left for analysis. So we also need to make up GC mass spec samples, and the residue that wouldn't come out is enough for a GC mass spec sample since it really doesn't take very much. I could even scoop some of that back off the bench if I need it. So I'm going to prepare these GC mass spec vials. We know that this material is not very soluble in chlorinated solvents. I'm going to be using deuterated acetone for the NMR. So we will dissolve it in something that we know it's pretty soluble in. Oops, it's 48A, not 48B. And that's methanol. So I'm going to prepare GC mass spec vial for 48A and for 49B. And for 59A. And you may recall that we saved a little bit of the crude sample before recrystallization somewhere. Not actually sure where I put that. 212, no one. Yes, 49A. A little bit of crude solid. So we have 48A, we have 49A. There's that tiny little bit of solid that was in there that we saved. And then 49B and 59A. And we're just going to dissolve those in a little bit of methanol by squirting it into the beaker. I'm just going to, in 49A, which was the crude chlorinated product, I'm just going to put methanol in there to fill the vial to the top line. Which is about 1.5 milliliters. Cap that up tight. Transfer 48A. Then I can dispose of the beaker. not quite up to the top line, we're up to the middle line. That's enough. And then we'll transfer 49B. And you can see that it's gone into methanol pretty readily. I'm just going to wash the little bits of solid down the walls. One last clean pipette. Transfer 59A. Again, I'm going to wash down the walls. It really doesn't take very much sample for a GCMS spec, so the residue that wouldn't come out should be plenty for that purpose. And then we'll just take those over and give them a vortex, especially with 49A, since that solid was stuck to the walls a little bit. So we have 4 samples for the bromination. We'll set those aside for now. And these 3 solids will sit until we're ready to collect IR or NMR on them. We no longer need the methanol, since all the other samples go into a hydrocarbon or a chlorinated hydrocarbon solvent. So that's it for prepping the samples, and we'll take those over to the GCMS spec shortly.